Today on Behind the Strength, we're exploring something we all experience but rarely understand, our own mind. We're joined by Dr. Shwetambara Sabharwal, a clinical psychologist who's reshaping how we see therapy, not as a last resort, but as a way to live more aware, more present, and more emotionally free. Because behind the roles we play, behind the smiles we show, there are thoughts, patterns, and emotions quietly shaping our lives. And sometimes the real strength lies not in holding it together, but in understanding what's going on within. Welcome to Behind the Strength, Doctor.
Thank you, Priya.
Doctor, what led you to choose psychology as life's work?
I always say that psychology chose me. It was actually a fortuitous meeting I had with a particular teacher. I was studying medicine in London, and I had to come back because someone in the family got sick. And at that time, very unceremoniously, decisions were made by parents, and I was brought back from my course. And then I met a teacher of mine, a little bit confused and lost in life as to what I should do. And she said, "Why don't you pursue psychology?" And I still remember my first lecture with her in Sophia College, and I was in love with the subject. I've never looked back.
Was there a moment, that, there's always a trigger for something. It's a good trigger or a bad trigger. Was there something that shaped, your idea around and the love for psychology, other than, this, of course, the passion of being a psychologist or understanding the subject? Was there a particular moment that kind of nailed it for you? Like, this is it, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life.
For me, I think there wasn't a lightning bolt moment.
Right.
But it was a series of experiences, people, love gained and love lost, observation, some amazing things that happen in life and some terrible things that happen in life that led me to become more curious about the human mind,
Right.
more mine than anyone else at that point. But to answer your question, if I look back, all the way from my early years, from when I have memories until yesterday, I feel my life just keeps presenting me with triggers to do better at what I do and explore human mind and emotions and behavior better and better.
It's always evolving, isn't it?
It's perpetually evolving. For me,
Right.
I think I have that lens where I'm just curious about what I'm going through, what others are going through, and what can we do about it.
Absolutely. In fact, that's what makes you who you are. Do you or have you ever felt, the pressure to have it all together as a psychologist? It is not only a role that you're playing, it is who you are, as I said. Doesn't that, impose any sort of pressure on you at some point?
I love that question. I think it's such a fair question. Pressure is an external thing. I don't internalize it. So I'd say there are expectations, and I'm not alone, and psychologists are not alone. I feel women, mothers, homemakers, working women, we all experience it at all times.
Absolutely.
And I have my share, but I don't think I internalize it at all. I do put some evaluation on what I do. Right. And how I do it and how I can walk away having learned better than what I did yesterday. But I don't internalize pressure at all. It doesn't become my self-worth.
That's the way to kind of be wholesome about yourself, isolated from the work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the only way to shield yourself.
True. What does therapy as perspective mean?
Therapy as perspective is one of the most powerful ones that you can have. I think we all go through life, and sometimes, unfortunately, with intent, and most times without intent, people will land up hurting us.
Right.
And how do you come back from it? How do you recover from it? How do you heal from it? Is something that therapy can give you.
Correct.
So I think it is very important perspective that people need to have, open up their minds to. It sounds scary, I guess, because we know very little about it.
True.
But if we can open up our minds to explore, I think it can be a very transformative experience.
Absolutely, it can be. And do you think everybody or most of us need therapy at some point?
I'd absolutely agree. I feel most of us need a safe place to sound off what we are experiencing, to gain perspective, to check in with ourselves.
Absolutely.
And be able to walk away wiser from situations.
Correct.
Not wounded. And to be able to become wiser, we need to learn, and we can't learn in isolation and as islands.
Absolutely.
We have to collaborate. There's so much to learn from each other. Sometimes even from your hearing your own perspective about things.
Right, absolutely. So the idea is not to be stuck in a box in your mind.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes we create these boxes for safety.
Defense mechanisms.
Yeah. And that's what therapy gives you, a perfect safe place to open that up.
Coming to, parenting, modern parenting as we call it, why is play important in development?
Play is one of the most important things that we need to provide opportunities for to our children for their development. It teaches them cause and effect. It stimulates their brain.
Right.
So we're looking at their brain physiology, coming astute, and starting from that, the way they see themselves, the way they emote, the way they behave, the way they socialize, all of that stitches in.
Absolutely.
It's something that's inextricable. You can't separate one from the other, and has a great impact. Best way to teach children is through play.
Well, I'm glad. I'm a parent myself, and I 100% resonate with that, because I do like my daughter to play and explore and understand what she's doing. So yes, absolutely. Are children today more emotionally overwhelmed with everyone that you see, the parents or the children? I mean, are they more emotionally overwhelmed than, say, the previous generations?
I would have to agree that the children are highly overwhelmed because their environment has changed.
Right.
And their primary caretaker has changed. So I always say it's not so much about the children, it's about the overwhelmed parents that I like to talk about. Children these days are coping with a huge comparison culture. There's a big shift. We sat in classes of 30 kids, 40 kids, and that was our world,
Right.
Other than home. And now with social media, children's environment has just expanded, it's exploded. Things that they get exposed to way too early.
Right.
So they're already overwhelmed in terms of this hyper competition, hyper awareness, hyper stimulated world that they have. And then when they come home to dysregulated, stimulated, or overwhelmed parent,
Correct.
it doesn't seem very safe and very conducive to emotional balance. And that's the concern. This is not fear mongering. This is just for us to become aware and start looking at how we can start creating these shifts in their environment. So I always say that parents have to start doing work on themselves. It doesn't have to be therapy. It can be few consults just for awareness that you book. And start asking questions about what is overwhelming you, because you can't go out and completely change the environment. But what you can do is become a more solid, grounding support system for them at home to come back to.
Talking about this, just as an example, what would you say would be an overwhelming environment at home when a child comes home from school? Child has had about 6 to 7 hours at school. The child comes home. What would you call an overwhelming environment or parent?
That's a great question. I think an extreme absence or extreme hypervigilance or presence,
Right.
both can be overwhelming for a child. Sometimes parents are not able to be there.
Right.
For a child, whether that's physically or emotionally. That could be because of health, work, relationships, stress in their own lives. Or sometimes parents can land up overdoing it.
Right.
Where you approach a child with hypervigilance, with interrogation, with too many questions, trying to fix everything for them, thinking that you're trying to help. Of course, the intention is very beautiful. You want to be there for your child, but that also can be very overwhelming.
Correct.
For children. So I think we want to aim for a balanced approach and demonstrate groundedness. I love this word equanimity. Just being calm, being emotionally attuned to yourself.
Right.
You're not always going to be calm.
Of course not.
But when you're receiving a child at home, just tune into yourself, gather some tools to be able to be calm, to be open, and demonstrate groundedness for your child. So whatever they're coming up with, you're able to receive it.
Absolutely.
As opposed to be vulnerable to being triggered.
Absolutely, because emotions do trigger you.
Yes.
It's but natural, especially when it's coming from your child. It is going to be your maternal or paternal instinct to kind of, be protective in a certain way. So yes, I understand that completely. What are parents unknowingly doing wrong, other than, of course, getting triggered emotionally? Is there something today that a parent is unknowingly doing wrong?
I think the first thing I want to say is parents are being very hard on themselves. That relationship is so beautiful, so powerful. It's very rare where you might come across a parent who doesn't care enough. The problem is not about not caring enough. The problem is about caring too much. So I think parents really need to check in with their own health, body, mind, soul.
Correct.
I think that's the best gift we can give our children. And that is, according to me, the biggest mistake that we are making, not taking care of our own needs.
Correct.
And the second, if I may add, is this seeking perfection and wanting to control and wanting to repair everything, fix everything. That itself, that intent itself ungrounds us.
Right.
Perfection and control is the source of anxiety.
Absolutely, yes, it is. And that's what the child takes forward from a parent.
Yeah. So you're so quick to get dysregulated.
Right.
There's way too many issues that get magnified.
True.
We'll end up catastrophizing the smallest things because our own mindset is that everything should be perfect.
Absolutely.
For my child. So this need to hyperfix everything
Right.
for our kids, according to me, is a concern.
Absolutely, it is. And what about being a part of a rat race? I think that also is quite a pediment in the development of a child.
Yes, I think what you're talking about is a very genuine concern. But I do also feel that that's a reality of life. I think human beings get motivated and get inspired by each other. So there's a very healthy emotion, if you look at it, at the other end of the same spectrum,
right,
that we can work with. Instead of wanting to beat each other at the same thing, if we can kind of partner
learn
and
from
collaborate,
each
learn,
absolutely,
gain perspective. I think this can be so much more powerful to walk together.
Right.
In this journey, it is important to check ourselves when we are falling in that trap.
True. As long as we have a healthy output and a healthy vision for it, I think this is quite an interesting perspective, because whenever we speak about a rat race, it's always the negative side of it.
Yeah.
So there is, of course, a healthy side of it, and where competing, takes a back seat, and of course you learn from each other, you grow with each other.
Absolutely. I think we can set great examples for each other.
True.
I learn from observation and from other people's experience all the time. But do I have to race and win? Maybe not.
Well, the future can work in teams then.
Yes,
yeah, I guess. Today, how is the digital life shaping our minds? So much of it.
Yes, it's a very wide spectrum. But I'll try and be specific about this. I think it is taking over.
Yes.
Beyond what we intended.
Right.
It's grown so fast, and it's creeped into several areas of our life. So what we want to do is start becoming aware of how each one is navigating it. It's here to stay.
Absolutely.
So it's not something I believe in fighting and rejecting and banning completely.
Right.
But like I said, we need to navigate it better. I always give the example of having a matchbox at home or having a knife in the kitchen. We've learned how to navigate these tools for our benefit.
Right. Absolutely.
So the digital space can be weaponized, can hurt, can harm if we don't exercise precaution around it.
True.
So we really want to be careful. We want to have boundaries. We want to have rules. And we want to learn how to use this for our benefit.
Absolutely. But having said that, on a very subconscious level, if you're taking information in, you're not realizing at that point that this is something that is bringing me down. But over a period of time, because, well, this is not just one, for instance, social media. It's not just one algorithm that works in, it's many other issues and many factors that play, that kind of play havoc with your mind, but you've not realized it until it's too late. And now you've reached a point of anxiety, depression, probable worse outcomes.
I think your concern is very, very genuine. The first thing that digital space is doing to us is it's changing our brain physiology.
Precisely.
It's changing our hormonal systems. It's changing the balance of neurotransmitter.
Right.
In our bodies. So we need to understand that this is not something that is just impacting our environment, and beyond a point, we have discretion of how much to engage with it.
Right.
So it is taking over. It is creating habits faster than the human mind is used to
Absolutely.
working with. So I think precaution is the way forward. And you're right that by the time we realize that there is a habit created,
It's
we
an
are
addiction.
physiologically dependent on it after a point.
Right.
And that journey, then it just becomes tougher and tougher. Although I have to say, I see way too many people, who are easily able to get over it. It's just about awareness and then
Navigating
equipping
it.
yourself
Yes.
with the tools to start working towards remission. The human mind is very strong, very plastic, very dynamic. So just as you create this new habit, which is one of the fastest in creation, you
True.
can break it as well.
Absolutely. But again, coming back to us as human beings, are we becoming less self-aware beyond the point?
From what I see, I feel that there is a large section that is actually becoming more interested in this conversation.
Right.
They are becoming keen on understanding this realm of awareness and consciousness, the relationship between the body, mind, and soul. So there are takers, unfortunately, not as much as we'd like, not as fast as the digital space is growing. So in comparison, it seems that we're not doing enough. I do feel that we need to step up work when it comes to creating opportunities for people to listen in.
Right.
Nobody teaches us while we're growing up or even in our adult years how to become self-aware. We psychologists and healers these days, everyone's talking about awareness and self-awareness and self-love.
Right.
But if you really look at what those words mean, there isn't enough awareness, enough information about it. And I think we as professionals need to step that effort up. You're doing your bit. It's a conversation that needs to be had over and over.
Absolutely. Talking about self-awareness, I personally believe that until a person is pushed to a limit or there is something which is life-changing, the self-awareness does not occur.
That's very reflective of you to say, because I always tell everyone who comes into therapy that, and resilience only comes through pain.
True.
No one sits down on a good day and says, "Chalo, let's talk about self-awareness today," and that I need to look at how I need to grow.
Yes.
It is through challenges,
Right.
through falling down, through loss and through pain that we really shake ourselves up and say, okay, something has to change.
Right. At the core level.
At the core level. And I'll tell you what shifts. What shifts is when you stop looking at what others did, how he spoke and she behaved, how life treated me badly, how I should have been treated, or how I will be treated in life, what I will gain, what I will lose because of others, to what can I do? What am I bringing to the table? What are my personality patterns? What are my traumas or micro traumas?
Right.
What is my nature and perspective that I'm approaching this with? And when you start listening, I'm not even talking about the change in philosophy yet.
Just an analysis, literally.
Just the willingness
Yes.
to switch off that light that we all have, hyper vigilant about what is happening around us.
Correct.
On the outside, like spotlight focused on the outside, to turning it within. And starting to look at who am I?
Right.
What am I coming with? Do I have a deficient way of looking at this? Can I expand that? Can I question my belief systems? That changes everything.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But again, as I said, people wait for something to come out of it.
Yeah, that's why they say blessing in disguise.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
It can be very irritating if someone says that when we're going through something, but in retrospect, we all realize that it was through that difficult time that I transformed.
True, absolutely. Why is asking for help difficult?
Asking for help, the first thing that comes to our mind is that I don't know this. The narrative that we have in our head, this little voice in our head that gets louder and louder when we are distressed, is you failed. You can't do this on your own. You should have known better. These may have been voices that we have heard in the past, or this might just be a voice that took birth inside of us without any trigger. And so it's this voice that we need to actually challenge and possibly beat. It becomes very hard when you're really carrying that enemy inside of you.
Precisely.
That's why help is so hard, because we feel that only the ones who somehow lack capability are the ones who ask for help.
True.
So I think that's the mindset that makes it the hardest.
Is emotional suppression, is it normal for us? We suppress our emotions to feel good.
Suppression is a very common defense mechanism that we use. Doesn't necessarily help us, which is why we need safe spaces like counseling and therapists to be able to talk about emotions in an appropriate and safe place. But socially speaking, you don't have an opportunity to always be able to deal with an emotion when you're going through it in every environment.
Of course.
It's not necessarily safe. We learn over time that not everyone can be trusted. There's a lot of judgment. So emotional suppression is very normal, but not necessarily helpful.
As long as you have the right sounding board.
Absolutely. We all do it,
Yes.
which is why I'm saying it's normal. But we have to recognize a support system well within maybe your families and your friends, where you have trusted individuals you can go talk to, but also an objective point of view with a therapist, because there you will be given tools to be able to cope with emotions on a daily basis. You don't have to wait for weeks and months to, find family or that perfect opportunity with friends to actually be able to talk about it. So in that sense, you don't isolate yourself emotionally.
True.
There are tools that can be used on a daily basis.
And that, of course, is helpful because that's what you're going to take forward with you. It sets a foundation.
It's a myth that people think that emotions happen in the head. They happen in your body.
They do.
So if you suppress and you bury it or you deflect it,
it's going to come out as
it's going to show up.
Yes, it does. And it does. And I have seen that personally. So yes, I agree. What does high functioning distress look like?
Yeah. Such a great question. The word high functioning itself reflects someone who is seeking control, seeking perfection, thrives on praise, acknowledgement, validation.
Right.
Now, when I say those words, where do those words come from? They come from the outside.
Right.
Invariably, these people are perpetually dependent on the outside for a sense of well-being.
Absolutely.
And sense of self-worth.
Right.
And so you can see that they are perpetually on this hamster wheel to put in their best, do their best, but control what comes their way.
True.
Which has to be accolades, which has to be wins, which has to be achievement, which is an outcome of the future.
True.
So you're not really present in the moment. You have slipped, fast-forwarded into the future, which is not in anybody's control.
Absolutely.
And that's why the distress. Because there will be both emotional, cognitive, and in fact, even physical burnout for people who insist on functioning for outcome.
Correct. Is that a form of deficiency, like overcompensation for a form of deficiency?
It could come from one of those places. I wouldn't diagnose it to be so universally. It can be a personality type, like you said, it could be a form of defense mechanism, where there's a lack of something and you want to kind of overperform and compensate it. But mostly we see this as a personality type, where there's a high need for achievement and control.
Validation
and achievement.
Right. With regards to, counseling, therapy, why does the stigma still exist in society?
I wish I could answer that.
I'm sure you've been asked several times.
But I'm going to attempt it. Yes, I mean, it's been something that I started working 22 years ago.
Right.
So you can imagine at that time how much we have fought to justify our very existence and prove that, listen, psychology and therapy can help you. Right. But I really empathize with that stigma. It is hard to to be able to accept that things in my life, in my relationship, in my work, in my coping mechanisms are not okay. We have put so much judgment on being able to at least have this right now. Relationships, it's so easy, right? Being strong. This whole performative around, how good are you as a mother and how good are you as a team leader. And so for us to really look in the mirror and say, I'm struggling with that, it's actually a very tough thing.
Yes.
Very often this, it becomes worse because when we talk to friends and family, we are met with empathy, but not with the right tools. we're met with advice which can actually be very counterproductive.
True, sometimes it could be detrimental. And more or less, I'm not certain about the empathy bit. A lot of times people don't really understand. Most of the times they don't, because they also come from their own point of view, their own life experiences that are circling around them or they've had. So it's very difficult for many people to empathize with something that a person is going through. And of course, expectations are also always there as a part of it. So
yeah, sure. Family and friends, I think, to a certain extent, don't have the tools to do it rightly the way you and I understand empathy. But I know that the intent often is right.
Intent is right, but sorry to interject.
Please do.
Apologies on that. But this is something which is, something that resonates with me a lot, because there are times where I have heard, or many other people could have heard, this is nothing. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
It's like brushed.
Yes.
This is not important.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where empathy takes a back seat. And still, if you say, okay, I'll go to a counselor, then the stigma exists.
Yes, absolutely. Even today, we have people who come not having told their families, or telling us that, listen, it's been a big battle making it here because everyone, turned around and said, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Do you really need to go to a counselor for something like this? So there's a lot of judgment involved, unfortunately, a lot of stigma around this being seen as a weakness.
Right.
If you have an emotional concern, if you're not being able to handle a certain loss or a challenge in life, physical ailments, medical things are almost always met with this sense of urgency. Let's quickly. But if you're struggling with an emotional concern, the general expectation is that you should be able to cope with it.
True. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more to that. Okay. Why is, again, coming back to this question, why is emotional expression uncomfortable in Indian homes?
There is, again, it's the same thing. There's a lot of judgment around vulnerability.
Right.
You want to portray yourself to be put together, strong.
Right.
This demeanor that you need to have around family members, the way you treat your elders, the way you treat your younger ones. I see some amount of strength in it because there's a certain culture of etiquette, of propriety.
Right.
And that has been a strength for Indians. But I do feel that also can present as a lot of pressure and judgment around emotional expression.
True.
I feel it's changing, Priya. I have to say that in my, practice of 2 decades plus, I've seen a lot of this change. People are open-minded. People are seeking help for things that earlier parents and families would be very closed-minded to, would almost do it in secrecy.
Right.
It's getting better, but I think if I had to look at why this is happening more in Indian homes, first I'd actually disagree that it is happening world over.
I agree.
I do work with a lot of people overseas. They have very similar things to say, from comments that come from their friends and family. A little bit more so in the Indian culture, maybe because we have this sense of, propriety around how relationships should be.
Family.
So if you're struggling in family, to go out and speak to a third person about what's going on is not okay.
True.
If you're struggling in your marriage, to actually even talk about it to your own mother is not okay.
Correct.
She won't hear it. If you are not feeling nurturing towards your own child, and if you had to share that with somebody, there would be a huge amount of judgment when actually, clinically speaking, so many mums go through it just plain because of physiology.
It's normal disconnection. Especially during postpartum. I think that's when it happens the maximum. I'm not sure of course not as a professional.
Yes.
But I have, so many of my friends who've been through a similar phase, including myself. You do have that little disconnect at some point.
Yes.
So I think that's normal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't believe it. What belief needs to change urgently?
As far as psychology is concerned, I feel we need to stop looking at psychological interventions as crisis management. What needs to change urgently is we don't have to wait for a disaster to happen.
True.
Don't wait to have a meltdown, a breakdown, or some sort of mental health disease
Correct.
To seek help, even if you have curiosity and questions. I think
Right.
it's something that needs to be seeked and engaged with.
That's a very appropriate response, because as you mentioned even earlier, mental health does not just stay in the mind, it manifests as some sort of a chronic disease at a time. Today, cancer is stress related. PCOD stems from stress when it could have been nipped in the bud. But people don't realize it until and unless it manifests itself as a disease. And then after that, people go in for, post-trauma counseling. So when does a person realize, at that point that this is my nascent stage, I am going to spiral into this vortex? When does that person go for help? What is the sign, the trigger for that person that, no, now I need help?
I think we'll look at it two ways. One, when there is a concern that is pervasive. It's existing even though you've tried various different things.
Right.
When it is causing some sort of impairment, so when it is interfering with your functioning, you're not able to go to work, your kid doesn't want to go to school, you don't want to go and socialize, you can't get out, you can't get into a lift, you're not able to talk to a person without getting into a fight.
Right.
So these are signs and symptoms of functionality being impacted, and when something is escalating, so you feel it's progressing or it's becoming worse. So those are the signs when we say, okay, this is something that is non-negotiable, you really immediately need to start talking to someone. The other way that I look at it, which is a little bit less definitive, more like a checklist for yourself.
Right.
We have 3 pillars for holistic wellness. And believe me, we cannot ignore any of these. These are body, mind, and soul.
Right.
On a daily basis, we need to have a way of checking in with all 3. How am I feeling in my body, my mind, and my soul? If you feel that there is something off there, even if it means a shift in appetite or not sleeping enough or just exercising too much or not wanting to exercise at all, those are simple yellow flags to want to seek help. When it comes to the mind, am I overthinking?
Right.
Is something triggering too much sadness or despair? Emotionally, am I getting very moody, getting very angry too quickly, or hitting a low when I don't want to, or when the situation doesn't warrant so being aware of that.
Being aware.
So it's important that you look at what are you going to check in with yourself.
Absolutely.
So check in with your body, mind, soul. If you think that there is something that's not quite in balance,
Right.
talk to someone.
It's amazing, and thank you for that. I'm sure that would really help a lot of people. But can people truly change?
I think people can both truly and very powerfully change. We are very dynamic. You and I are not the same people that we were an hour ago before we met each other.
True.
Right? And so that just proves that we are constantly changing. We are constantly capable of transforming and evolving. From the bottom of the food chain, the human being has moved right to the top of it.
True.
And that's because we're adaptable. And I think that's something that we need to always remember. So yes, people can truly change.
But they always say, you yourself are your worst enemy. You've heard that so many times. I mean, a person just says that your mind is your enemy. You are an obstacle for yourself at times. A lot of people hear that in the middle of a path, or whatever that it is, that they follow. How do you, if, say for instance, someone is coming to visit you and you can see that this person has come with this block, how do you overcome or help that person see that this is a block we have to kind of cross over?
Yeah. So many interesting things that come to my mind while you say that. The first thing is when someone is comes into your environment and you feel that they have a block.
Right.
My way of working with such a situation is, what is it triggering inside of me?
Right.
I rarely tell myself that I want to change this person or help this person unless the person asks. For me, it's always about, what is this touching in me? What is it doing to me? So I always, like I said earlier, I always turn within and I always say, how do I want to receive this? And that's the second thing I want to say. We change or we respond to the environment based on what we're willing to receive from the environment.
Right, absolutely. How do you simplify psychology for people when it comes to writing?
Yeah.
You've written. So how do you?
I think relevance is most important. psychology as a term is quite alien to a lot of people.
Right.
But when we talk about relationships, when we talk about our emotional struggles, what we go through on a daily basis really lands and makes it easy to understand.
Absolutely.
So it is the study and science of the human mind, emotions, and behavior, which we are constantly engaging in at
Right.
all times as long as we're alive.
Absolutely.
And yet we're so alien to it.
Yes.
So it's a great question. Making psychology relevant in our daily life makes it easier for people to understand. And these are struggles that we all, you, me, everyone experiences.
Right.
So talking about your own struggle sometimes really makes it easier and palatable for people to receive that, oh, you're also going through this. That means it's normal, and it's relevant.
Yes, but with our generation or the generations, coming after us, there's a lot of awareness about psychology. Probably a generation older, I'm not classifying it age-wise, but just in general, there's a lot of confusion between psychiatry and psychology.
Yes.
The minute you tell someone, you have to go to a psychologist, that person will give me a tablet. That person will give me this medicine which will, impair my functioning, and I will not be able to do this and I will not be able to do that. Very tough to explain to them that, you're just speaking, you're kind of opening up. So there is this little, I'm sure you faced it.
I was just going to say it's a conversation I have on a daily basis because people do have these fears around psychiatric treatment. And I think to a certain extent, Bollywood has really given us these visuals.
Absolutely.
When a person would get ECTs or would be incarcerated in asylums.
Yes.
And I think that has just stayed. But we have come far, far away from that. And treatments for psychology and psychiatry have become incredibly sophisticated. There is so much money that has been spent on just understanding the mind and the brain and the nervous system. So the difference between psychology and psychiatry essentially is under two brackets. One, the way we study for it. So psychiatry is part of medicine, medical studies. So you have to do your MBBS, then you become a psychiatrist, whereas you can become a psychologist having studied arts or the sciences. And it is a subject that you essentially take in your third year of college and then go on to studying it, and you eventually do your doctorate. The way they treat, psychiatrists give medicine. Psychologists do not prescribe. They work through talk therapy.
Correct.
So you're essentially spoken to.
Yes.
And then you're, asked to explore through conversation, and there are certain other tools that we bank on.
Of course, yes.
So the ways of treatment and our career-making years, everything looks very, very different.
Right.
And there was something else you asked in relation to this. I wanted to say that two things that are different.
No, so people are confused about it, and so
something I wanted to stitch that conversation in. Anyway, I lost my thought, and then maybe if we come back, I'll finish it.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
It's okay. So, have you ever dealt, with a patient who has come out or who is battling something that's chronic? I'm sure you have.
Yes, of course.
How is that different from, treating someone who is dealing with daily life battles? The tools would be vastly different, I guess.
Yes,
I'm certain. Yes.
Absolutely. When there is a chronic psychological concern in terms of a presence of a pathology,
right.
Then we really need to tap into various ways of treating this depending on the most important need. So one, that it's chronic, to how urgent is it?
Right.
So there are certain diseases and psychopathologies in which we need to turn to a psychiatrist, involve medication, involve the families, co-counsel family members, and put together a support system, a weekly plan of treatment. So there's a lot more aggressive work that we put in when there is a chronic urgent concern. Whereas if there is a borderline concern or a concern that is more lifestyle related, then we do have a very different therapeutic relationship where it's not that aggressive, but the lens is largely curiosity. And how can we look at creating shifts in thought process, in emotional patterns, and in behavioral patterns of the person.
Absolutely. Of course, that makes sense. What topics resonate the most with you when it comes to psychology and writing?
You know, this is perpetually evolving for me. I did my doctorate in couple conflicts, and that remains to be a passion area for me. I feel that I got into specializing with couples because I see that as the birthplace of both joy and despair. I feel it's such a powerful relationship. This naturally progresses into the well-being a child feels in a home, you know, where there is presence of conflict or not, and how conflicts are managed. So that is a passion area for me. But that said, now I've been working with families over 20 years, and now when they have their kids going to college or they go through something in school, they say, you know, you have to see them. The minute I get, you know, that new population, then I deep dive into that, and that also becomes an area of passion. I have to say that the human mind has always intrigued me. I do like to meet everyone I see with the psychological perspective, but also provide practical support. So in the course of my career, I've done a lot of experiments with practical solutions. For example, many years ago, I started a night creche in Bombay. It was the first, I think, in the country. Because I had a lot of couples coming in for therapy who were double income and were working through the day and didn't find time enough with each other, especially when they had little children. So I started this creche where they could drop in their kids at 7. They had an entire team, and we would have a nighttime routine with them, put them to bed, and they could pick their kids up late in the night after a movie or dinner. I've done this with youth forums where I felt that children needed to really talk to each other because they learn very well from each other. So we started these youth forums across colleges where kids would meet us in groups of 8. We'd have a mediator and have these meetings around problems they were seeking.
That's hands-on. It's extremely hands-on.
Absolutely. And, you know, there was the camaraderie that came out of it, such powerful solutions and the kind of friendships that we saw evolve. And let's say, you know, one of my most recent ventures, when in therapy, people would come and say, Doc, when we sit in front of you, we know the work that we have to do, but we walk out and we forget. And so I came up with a line of products, for example, that can lie around in your environment and remind you to pause, to take a break, to reflect. And like I said, to turn inwards and see how you can come back.
In continuum.
In continuum, absolutely. So in that sense, do therapy at home for yourself. I've always met concerns from the lens of how can I create a shift within the person, and also look at trying to scaffold their journey towards healing.
That's extremely wholesome because it doesn't just stop, you know, while you're in therapy. You take it forward with you, whether it's a group or whether it's even handling a child for that matter. Like that's amazing. Wow. Doctor, what does strength mean to you?
Strength to me means being able to take a pause and listen to myself.
That's right.
It might sound very simplistic, but I have to say it is so deeply empowering in my experience.
It's not simple. It's not simple.
And I catch myself doing that, and I can see how that just shifts the direction of what I'm going to feel and what I'm going to say, and how I'm going to cope with it.
When have you felt overwhelmed? Have you ever felt overwhelmed?
Of course, I feel overwhelmed.
We're all humans.
I feel overwhelmed a bunch of times, especially as a parent. You know, I want to make sure that I'm there for my kids. So largely maybe in that area of my life. But like I said, I make all the effort to stay aware that my overwhelm does not impact, of course, my body, mind, soul beyond a point, and certainly not that of my kids.
Of course. Now we're entering a rapid fire.
Let's do it.
Okay. One myth about therapy.
Gosh, it should be rapid. There's so many.
Anyone.
It's long term. If I go once, then I'll have to go for the rest of my life.
Right. One habit for better mental health.
Breathe.
One parenting mistake.
Not being aware of what you're carrying to this relationship.
Right. One sign you should seek help.
dysfunctionality, when I'm not being able to do what I do on a daily basis.
And one word, what is healing?
A journey.
Lovely. Having said that, understanding yourself isn't a weakness. It's where real strength begins. And we've learned that with Doctor today. So thank you very much, Doctor. It was lovely to have you with us and an amazing conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed being here.
Likewise. Thank you.